Okay, good morning, everyone. Calling to order the Clark County Board of Health, March 26, 2025. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you and welcome. How about the roll call, Michelle?
Counselor Young?
Here.
I don't have Counselor Belcott. Counselor Fuentes?
Here.
Counselor Little?
Here.
And Chair Marshall.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, are there amendments to the agenda?
None today.
No. Okay, we'll start with the consent agenda, which are the minutes from February 19th, 2025. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move directly to a public hearing, amendments to Clark County Code 24.17, on-site sewage system and regulation. We'll start with a summary from Chuck Harmon, I think. Okay, come on up.
Does this work? Oh, good. It's
Good.
good morning, counselors. For the record, Dr. Alan Melnick, Public Health Director and Health Officer. I'm delighted to introduce Chuck Harmon, who's our Program Manager in Environmental Public Health, and he'll introduce himself as well as his team.
Good morning, Chair Marshall. Chuck Harmon, Program Manager at Clark County Public Health. I oversee on-site septic programs, currently the operation and maintenance, kind of life cycle management and oversight of septic systems. I'd like to introduce Miles Lawson, who is interim manager for the permitting side of that program.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councilors. Miles Lawson, interim program manager for the on-site septic system permitting side of the house.
Great, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. This morning we're here to talk about updates to the local on-site septic sewage rules and regulations 2417. And we can go to the next slide. Thank you. This is an update that's required at this time because the state has been working for about the last 5 to 6 years to update the state on-site septic rules. And those updates are effective on April 1. So we've been working here to update our code to reflect and match the state code so that we're in alignment with both. The last update that we had done to the local code was just a few years ago. We had been working to make some local updates and actually make some other corrections to get in line with the state code. And that was again about 3 years ago that the last time we updated the code. We have conducted, shared the drafts of the updates to the local code with the local on-site septic industry. We and the technical advisory committee, we shared the document, took written comments, and then conducted 2 meetings in January to go over and answer any questions or concerns from that group. Next slide. And again, just to remind, so the state code does have, and I won't read this whole thing, but basically the counties do need to be consistent with, or at least as stringent as the state code for septic rules. So again, that was what drives doing this now and getting it in place around the same time that the state rules come in place. The thing to remember is that regardless of whether our codes are effective on April 1 locally, the state still has, and everyone in and we've known about the state rules. They've given everyone about a year to get ready for the change. So just wanted to point that aspect of this out. And so this morning, we're going to cover in our planned presentation to talk about some of the significant updates. This is based on some of the state's evaluation of that, but we're also happy to answer any questions that the council has about the code. It was provided in an ordinance that we put together and worked with the prosecuting attorney's office on. That's also part of the packet. So we can go on and we'll just cover some of the major changes. Okay, I think so yeah, next slide, I'm sorry. So one of the new requirements that is that increased land area requirements are in the state code for development served by septic. And basically, this is an update to current code that, and the key aspect of it is you need to have enough land for both a primary system and a future replacement system. And the state's updates require more land and also ensure that there aren't other restrictions that would make it difficult to put a replacement system in place. So at the time of development, so that's a key aspect of that. Lot sizes and the minimum lot sizes have increased by 500 to 1,000 square feet in the code. And again, the size that the lot can be is actually dependent on the type of soil, because the soil provides a significant amount of the treatment. And so in areas where there's poor soils, you're going to need more land. And then for nitrogen based minimum lot size, so nitrogen is a major contaminant or pollutant of concern. And so the lots can be made smaller than the code says if there are safety measures and additional treatment is added. So thank you. Next slide. There are updated requirements regarding repairs. And I wanted to explain this. The LHO is used in the code a lot. It's a local health officer. So Dr. Melnick in our case. Basically, the code requires allow the least expensive repair or replacement of a septic that meets the rules requirements. It also makes updates that if they are, that we have set timeframes to get those unpermitted sewage discharges remedied. And we may not impair more stringent repair requirements on private entities than public entities. Next slide. So there are some resilience, termed resilience measures in the new code at the state level. Some of these aren't directly applicable, and I'll talk to some of those issues to Clark County. One is there's a sea level rise component to the state code that's primarily relevant to Puget Sound counties due to expectations for the sea level rise and the need to be horizontally removed from standing water and surface waters. There are additional requirements in Puget Sound counties, again, regarding phosphorus. And this doesn't, again, apply directly to Clark County Health. However, I wanted to note that knowing that, and we are involved already with organizations that are working on the nutrient problems and the biotoxin problems that we have, like at Lake Vancouver and Lacamas Lake. And so we're already talking to our partners in the area, and we'll look for when there are phosphorus limited water bodies or water bodies that are impacted, that we will look at phosphorus issues for septics in those areas, the drains of those areas. This next one is mostly applicable to the state, but there are what's called proprietary products that are the manufacturer has very specific, standards on those, and this allows for just retrofitting with components that were not part of the testing regime for that proprietary product to be approved if there's a disruption in the supply chain. And I think that's based on some of the experiences of the last 4 or 5 years. And so it just allows for retrofitting of other products in those cases. Again, that's more applicable to the state, but it could have a local component. And if somebody put in a proprietary product and had to put in replacement parts, this code would allow them to do that within certain requirements. So verifying efficacy of treatment components, one of the changes to the rule is that septics that have disinfecting and nitrogen treating proprietary components, they must test them in the field. And normally the way that would be done is not testing a bunch of test sites. They would install those types of systems in places around the state and be under the state code, be monitoring and measuring their performance to get them approved as a treatment product. And so that, again, that applies more to the state's work because they do all of the treatment system and treatment component approvals at the state level. However, we could get applications at the county level for some of these products. as part of a testing regime to get them approved by the state. Next slide. Thank you. The state code has been updated to allow for some remediation approaches. So remediation is when you might have a small lot and a drain field has failed and there's no other sewer available. And so one method, or there's different remediation techniques, you may need to do some treatment or remediation of the soil. There's a couple different technologies where you can kind of rehabilitate areas of the property or a former drain area to allow it to receive waste again. Again, typically you would not go and reuse a septic drain field soon after it's failed. However, there are methods to work on that, and the state does allow this. And again, we have normally not, and I don't think of any situations where we've had a remediation proposal come to us, but because of the change in the state rule, they may. And then finally, under remediation approaches, they've just clarified what is considered a minor repair of a septic to clarify when permits are not required. And again, that there's already a lot of that in the code. They just went into more detail about things you can do that don't require coming to the department to get a permit. If, like, replacing certain parts of the system that aren't treatment components, and are more like appurtenant structures that take the sewage from the house into the treatment system. And those are, again, summaries of the guidance the state had sent out about major differences. I don't know if the council's had time to go through all of the changes. I know it's quite a few pages, but if you have any questions about the rule update, please, we're ready to answer your questions.
I think we have some questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question, Chair. Minimum lot size for treatment, is that new requirement going to constrain our facilities? Are we already constricted to a certain lot size, and do we need to expand for the nitrogen porous soils and such? And then my second question is, I was curious why sea level rise requirements don't apply to us if we're tidally influenced below the Bonneville Dam.
I can answer those questions. With respect to the lot size, there's already minimum lot sizing standards set in the code. There's an exemption for existing legal lots of record that were created before the current set of standards. And so those are allowed to be developed. This mostly applies to the creation of new lots, so subdivisions, short plats, that kind of stuff. So those minimum lot sizes are going up a little bit. For the most part, rural lot subdivisions, the Title 40 Development Code has larger lot sizing standards than the septic does. So it's rare, it's not totally unheard of, but it's rare that becomes an issue. So I don't think this increase actually pushes us over that threshold. So I don't anticipate there being a huge amount of issue with that. And then the primary concern with lot sizing is density. So by having too dense grouping of septic systems, you can have a nitrogen problem, and that's why they've proposed using nitrogen treatment as a way to reduce lot sizes. And then with respect to the sea level rise, I don't know that the state's intent was to suggest that it wouldn't impact us, but I think the language is very specifically referencing Puget Sound counties, because they have a number of higher standards than other counties do.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was just going to add real briefly, I think ultimately the code does protect and does have setback requirements. So if there was over a period of time changes in what and against like shoreline requirements and the floodplain. So if there were changes to those standards due to climate impacted changes, the code already kind of accommodates that through the setbacks that exist already to surface waters.
Go ahead.
I had a similar question to Councilor Little. Appreciate that answer that all existing lots are grandfathered in, because that would create some real mass confusion, and people that own property that thought was buildable suddenly becomes not buildable. But I did want to expand a little bit more on one of his questions, and that is with the we just recently updated our zoning policy with the POSAP, with the housing options that we did. My question is, if somebody owns a lot that can be divided, will our code allow sufficient space to allow a septic system appropriately according to the new code.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the section of code that references nitrogen treatment as a way to reduce lot sizes. It has a number of provisions above and beyond nitrogen treatment, and one of the primary parts of that code is just ensuring that you have that space. So that would be part of the approval is demonstrating that that space exists. The other part of this code clarifies that you can't take credit for land that's unusable. So in the past, the way the minimum lot sizing standards were written, they didn't account for properties that say had a portion of their square footage underwater, or something, or a wetland or something like that you couldn't build in. And so this is attempting to clarify needing not only a minimum lot size, but a minimum usable area. But like I said, I haven't seen a lot of instances in rural development, which is where you most likely see septic, where sizing has become a serious issue.
Okay, no, I mean, there are still urban areas that are served by on-site septic. So my question is really the smallest lot size that we allow in the urban growth areas where they're going to be served by on-site septic. Is there a method in every instance, aside, obviously, when you have land constraints, like if there's water, that's different. But our smallest lot size, if it's bare and it's all able to be used, they will be able to build an on-site septic system that fits code. They may have to do some of the nitrogen, but they can. I just want to make sure that we're not adopting something that's going to affect the code that we just adopted.
Yeah, I mean there is a, and I don't have it in front of me. There is a drop dead minimum. It's pretty small for lots served by septic, and so we'd have to meet that, and then you would still have to be able to install a system that was of sufficient size to serve whatever the proposed structure was. So in some cases, lot sizes are, if they're small enough, the development might be limited. So you could still develop, but you couldn't build an absolutely massive home. Maybe you have a 2-bedroom home instead of a 10-bedroom home, because that exponentially increases the size of the septic system. So I think in most cases, there's likely to be options. I don't think in my just over 6 years here, I've seen a lot that we couldn't develop because it was too small.
Okay, and what size are we looking at? I mean, we said plus 1,000 square feet, but what size are we? Is there a magic number?
Yeah, I think, again, I don't have it in front of me. So the current standard up until April 1st, the absolute minimum is 12,500 square feet. And then if you're, and again, that's doing the sort of alternative methodology for sizing lots with the enhanced treatment and all that kind of stuff. But if you're following the primary standard, if you're on a septic system, like Chuck said, it's determined by soil type. It's also determined by what your water supply is. So if you're on public water, you can have a much reduced lot because you don't have a well that you have to account for. But if you have a private water supply and a septic system and some of the worst soils in the county, you're typically looking at about a 2-acre lot.
Okay, 12,500. I mean, we definitely have zones that are significantly smaller than that. I'm not sure how many of those areas. I mean, there's still cities inside there's still property inside the city of Vancouver that aren't serviced by the sewer. So, I mean, it sounds to me like we could, I mean, it's state law, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about it, but I mean, it seems to me like there could be some impact on this in terms of might create a situation where somebody owns one of those bigger old lots, you know, that had a farmhouse on it or whatever at one time, and they go to split it, that they really aren't going to be able to split it down to the smallest, the most dense that we're hoping to achieve because of this. And they may not have been able to even before the changes. So that's new to me learning this. Then thank you for that. I appreciate that insight. And then my next question is, I lost my train of thought. Does anybody else have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Just
I would say
building.
we still have a public hearing, so if there's clarifying questions, we'll have chance to ask more questions after the public comment. But go ahead.
Oh.
Please go ahead.
If that's the better,
If you
whatever
have-
you prefer. You mean they'll still be up here?
They can still be up here, yeah. But if you have a,
Well, this one's quick. You had said something about if there's the worst soils, it might be a 2-acre minimum size that you need. I was just curious what the nitrogen mitigation practice would be that a homeowner would have to do to meet the standards under these new standards. I'm just trying to get a grasp of what the costs would be for this, what it is, so I can picture it in my head and what the costs might be.
Sure. So like Chuck alluded to in his presentation, the state does the approvals for certain types of treatment technologies, proprietary treatment technologies, and they provide lists to all the counties of what treatment products are allowed to treat what types of contaminants. And so there is a list of products that treat for nitrogen. They have to meet an NSF standard, National Sanitation Foundation standard of reducing nitrogen by half. And so what we would do at the county level, and you'll have to bear with me because we haven't had to do this yet, so it's going to be new to all of us, but we will get an estimate based on some of the background science the state has done on how much nitrogen we expect a given home or business or whatever it is to produce, and then we'll have to reduce that by 50%. And so what it means for cost is probably a higher treatment system to meet those treatment standards than might otherwise be required.
Okay, but no rough estimate of what this would cost a homeowner?
It's hard to say because you don't, without knowing what would otherwise be required. So if you're going from a gravity septic system, which could be in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, all the way up to higher treatment, which could be $20,000, I have no way of knowing what the difference is without knowing the background. So if you were always going to need a high treatment system, it may be that your high treatment system also does nitrogen and there's no cost difference. So it just depends on, it's a very site specific calculus that has to be done.
Okay, thanks.
Yes,
Any question?
just remembered. So it sounds to me like from your comments that we're only adopting code that brings us up to the state requirements. Is there any that we've adopted that are more restrictive than the state requirements?
I don't think we have any. We have
There-
local code that's different than the state, but I don't
Yeah.
know that anything is more restrictive.
There are some, there is some language in the code about certain allowances related to homeowner self-inspection. We do allow that, and we do a training program for homeowners who want to inspect their own system. There are also allowances for the local health officer to decide if persons can install their own septic system. It says may in the code, but during our last code update, we determined that locally we didn't want to do that. We had seen too many problems rise up with homeowner self-installations. And so there are some areas like that in the code, but that's the major one. And then one of the other big differences between state code and local code is we locally at the county level certify certain septic professionals, the pumpers, inspectors, and installers at the county level. And so the state doesn't do that. Designers and engineers that design systems, they are licensed at the state level.
Okay.
So those
thank
are some
you.
examples, but
Okay. But nothing, no sweeping big changes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the public comment. Has anyone signed up for public comment? I just remind people this is comments on on-site sewage system rules and regulations.
I don't have anybody that signed up in the room for this public hearing specifically. But if you'd like to speak to this public hearing specifically, you can go ahead and step to the podium. I do have one hand raised online.
Okay, let's go to online.
Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute. Please go ahead and state your name for the record and go ahead with your comment.
Good morning. This is Kimberly Goheen Elbin. Well, right off the bat, I think Clark County has grown enough. I want to stop everything, growth, sewer systems, everything. Just had my first cup of coffee, so I'm just going to get into this. What a beautiful day, huh? So our sewage, with that thought in mind about stopping the growth, I think we're big enough. We have depleted resources here. I consider our clean water, well, there is no clean water. I consider our land. Oh, there's no clean land. You know, we're polluting the hell out of our earth, and we've got to start local here. This is a grassroots level movement here, and you, as the Clark County Council and the Board of Health, need to educate. I hate to use that word because, frankly, it's not your duty to do so, but you need to be transparent to the people as to the pollution of this earth. And I do not think you are. I'd like to see more transparency in, so we're talking about the sewer system. In that sewer system, we've got the PFASs, I've noticed is on your agenda today, and so is the clean water. So all that's hooked up to our sewer, isn't that something? These developers that are here need to stop developing. Everybody needs to relax, figure out that their budget at their own home is doing just fine. Stop being money lovers. We have to take care of our local resources. Vancouver Lake. I mean, I was born in Vancouver. I used to swim in it. Even back then, I had I just wore a shirt once over a bathing suit or something and got out, and I was about 7 years old, and got out of it, and that cotton shirt had filtered every damn thing in that river, in that lake. It was amazing, and that's back then. That's quite a few years ago. We need to stop putting the Band-Aids. People need to realize there's too many tax dollars going to big government. We need to downsize there, and including the sewer system, educate people about what we're doing to the earth. Get to the basics. We cause sewer, for God's sake. One thing I've mentioned here a few years ago is women can put their toilet paper in a trash bag. They can burn it, bury it, throw it in the garbage. It goes back to the earth. It's nano wood fiber, right? Toilet paper. That toilet
Okay,
paper
thank
goes
you.
down through
Your
our sewer
time is
and
up.
kills the fish's
Thank you.
gills.
Okay. Anyone else?
That concludes public comment.
I think there's two people in the audience that have been inspired. And this is just on the on-site sewage system rules and regulations. Oh, you need to, there you go.
My name is Wayne Gersich, and we didn't get a paper on that, but I know a lot about sewers because I was at the UN convention at the EPA when they were talking about adding chloramine to the drinking water. And what's amazing is this is what leaches lead from pipes. We need to replace tons of things besides the sewer system. Our water system since 2017 is supposed to drink toilet to tap. And it's got everybody's medicine and everything in it. And the chemicals that they use are extremely corrosive. And if you don't get this right, then what you're building is going to fall apart too, because it's going to corrode just as fast as you put it in. And this is something that's extremely important because a lot of people don't realize that they think, oh, they put it in an aquifer, or they put it here or that. That sewage treatment plant is the most important thing that you're building, because that is our water, and we all drink the same water, right? And if you want to live long, you make sure that you get it right, because I also know somebody that was trying to get the PFOAs out of the water and in Millbrae, California, but he lives up here. And I said, well, where are you taking that stuff? And he says, they take it to a landfill. Now, where is your hazardous landfill for this stuff that you're taking out of the sewage treatment thing? That's what I'd like to know. These things, the PFOAs, do you know where that came from? The Teflon was made, and you can read all about it on page 50 in this book about fluoride during World War II. And I suggest every single one of you read it because you need to know where these chemicals and our contamination is coming from. It's all over the place. And cleaning up the dirt and the wastewater treatment plant for what's going on that toilet. This bioweapon is in it. And this is the end of humanity. And also, those aborted fetal cells that from the abortion pill that Guzman Perez got sent through, that goes down the toilet too. And I think we need to get rid of that because I don't want that going through the sewer treatment plant. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, you just turned it off. Go ahead.
My name is Carmen De Leon. I go by Mello also. And so, I had suggested to people before, I boil my water because of the nanoplastics and everything else. They didn't even mention that, but it's in even our brains. It's in all of our bodies because we're drinking plastic every time, you open a plastic water bottle. Maybe that's not up to them, but in my country, maybe in his too, we had pilas. And everybody had a great big pila, and when it would rain, the water would catch it. So everybody had a stock home supply of rainwater. In case of maybe there's a sewage plant problem and there's feces in the public water, you had your pila at home. You could wash dishes, cook, do whatever, there was your pila. And they told me that you're not even allowed to do that in this county. You're not supposed to capture your own water. And I think that's a problem. I think everybody should have a pool or something. I mean, we do have Vancouver Lake that, it can be fixed if you want to invest in it, but I guess you don't. But people should have a stockpile of water, like, for example, the wildfires in California. Okay, the poor firemen were looking for pools because they needed water. And we're talking people out in the boony country where fires can happen if they had their own stock water. It's an invention I saw. It's kind of like one of those that waters the lawn, and you put it on the pool and it waters the property so it doesn't catch fire. When the firemen can't get there, you leave the thing hosing your house down and your property down so that the fireman, that house is being watered on its own because it has its own water supply and its own watering the property for safety, and there are other countries that don't even have this problem. And it's really, I don't know. Maybe we're too big for that, but they tell people to bring us your feces because we're going to use it in the farms for manure and repurpose human species, and the people bring their own doggy bag, So I'm just saying, you got to filter it, but it would help if you would allow people to catch their own water and have it handy so you won't have to rely on these people, because obviously it's a big problem here because we are dumbing down the nation with all this stuff in the water, and our IQ has been the lowest it's ever been in generations. And we're supposed to be a first world nation, and yet we got stupid people. What are you putting in the water? What are we drinking?
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to comment? Okay. Thank you. Okay, back to the council. Any additional questions of our panel? Okay, I have a couple of questions. So the septic systems, I was thinking they were primarily would be utilized and installed in the rural area rather than the urban area. And if someone is in the, are we installing any septic systems within a urban area if the sewer is available?
No, the answer to that question is no. I mean, the county development code does have requirements for if sewer is available, you need to connect the sewer.
Right. And if there's a failure of a septic system, because I know there still are quite a few in the urban area, would there be a requirement to hook up to the sewerage system at that point?
Yes. There are some circumstances where they can avoid hooking to sewer. If you wanted to talk more about that.
Yeah, locally we have an allowance. It's based on cost. So if you're replacing like for like, so you're not, when you replace your septic system, you're not also like expanding your house and therefore expanding the septic system. But if you're replacing like for like on a failed system and the cost is less than half the cost to connect to sewer, we will allow them to replace their septic system with a repair.
Okay,
But no new development or expanded development would be able to happen if sewer is available.
right. And then in the rural area, if there's expansions of existing housing that might have an impact on a septic system, is there's a nexus with permitting that you could go in and see if that's adequate?
Yes, we have a specific permit for expanding the septic system. So yeah, you have an existing system, but you're adding bedrooms or another structure like an EDU. That comes up a lot.
Yep.
That they would be required to add to the septic system.
Great. Okay, any other questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
Does this have an ordinance number or is it?
Yes, ordinance number 2025-0312.
Okay, I'll move approval of ordinance number 2025-0312.
I'll second.
Thank you, Counselor Belcott. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
This will require a roll call
Oh, roll
for
call.
ordinance.
Okay, good. Go ahead with the roll call.
Okay, Counselor Young,
Aye.
Counselor Belcott,
Aye.
Counselor Fuentes,
Aye.
Counselor Counselor Little,
Aye.
and Chair Marshall.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, it looks like you're going to stick around for the PFAS presentation.
Moving right to that, yes. If we're moving to that, yes, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce the speaker, Brian, who's online, Brian DeDonker, who will give the presentation about PFAS and the work the county has been doing. Brian is an environmental health specialist too, who has been involved in running our hazard assessment program, which includes lead protection work and other protections from hazardous substances. And so Brian DeDonker will get going here in a second. There he is. So.
Good morning. Thank you for your time and attention. My name is Brian DeDonker, and I've been with Clark County Public Health since 2004. And over the past 20 plus years, I've had the pleasure of developing and operating the Hazard Assessment Program. And the Hazard Assessment Program delivers three main full-service sub-programs. The first, as mentioned, is lead poisoning prevention, which I had the pleasure of presenting to Council last September. The second is site hazard assessment, and the third is drinking water source protection, which is why I'm here with you this morning. Next slide, please. Drinking water source protection is not to be confused with well water permitting, operation, and maintenance. There are two main program service initiatives. One, identify and assessing the potential risks to drinking water sources from known hazardous chemical contamination. And two, provide valuable no-cost guidance and technical assistance to private well owners, water utilities, and city partners in Clark County. Next slide, please. So what this image here shows are the large public drinking water wells owned and operated by our cities and water utilities. These three colored well shapes you see here show two things. The first thing they show is that groundwater generally throughout the county is flowing to the southwest direction towards the Columbia River. And the second thing that they show here is what's called time of travel, also known as zones of contribution. So if we look at these well shapes, we'll see three different colors. We'll see the first inner color, the neon pink shape, and somewhere roughly in the center of that neon pink shape is a city well or a group of wells called a well field or a water station. And what this means and shows is that all of the groundwater in that area that these neon pink shapes represent is expected to be pumped out of the ground by these wells and served to the public within a 1-year time period. The second shape, the lighter pink shape that extends beyond that 1-year time of travel, is called the 5-year time of travel. So similarly, it's expected that in any 5-year time period, all that water will be served to the public. And then the third shape, the yellow shape, represents a 10-year time of travel. Why are these models made? Why are they important? It's because 100% of our city and utility public drinking water in Clark County is provided by these wells. Therefore, it's obviously essential that we protect these precious and very sensitive drinking water sources. Next slide, please. So on September 6, 2006, the EPA determined the Troutdale Aquifer System in Clark County as a sole or principal source of drinking water, and that if contaminated, it would create a significant hazard to public health. Next slide, please. This photo on the left shows a type of well that is typical in size that serves a private residence, business, or a small community water system for drinking or even irrigation purposes. This type of well is called a pitless adapter. It has a watertight cap and is also frost-proof, and therefore you can find these wells standing out in the open like this one here. The other type of common well is called a traditional steel sleeve. It does not have a watertight cap, nor is it frost-proof, and therefore you will find these wells, or those wells, needing to be well insulated and located within a vault or a pump house. The large city and public utility wells are essentially the same, except they tend to be larger in diameter and fitted with much larger and more powerful pumps. This is because those wells are specifically located and designed to withdraw much more water volume than standard wells like in this photo. In the image, the depiction off to the right shows a standard well design where a certain diameter hole is bored or drilled into the earth until it reaches a groundwater aquifer. Then a steel casing or pipe with a screen at the bottom is installed into the boring hole with the space around it, then sealed. And then a well pump is installed. So every well in the county, no matter how deep, is pulling water from a groundwater aquifer. And a groundwater aquifer is simply an underground river or lake. And the only thing that separates us from these underground rivers and lakes is the very ground we stand and live upon. So considering the full scale of human activities, one can start to imagine how sensitive and in need of protection these groundwater aquifers demand, especially in Clark County, where we solely depend on them as our drinking water source. Next slide, please. So you may have seen or heard about forever chemicals or PFAS in the local or even national news. I'll just provide you with a very brief background. In 2013, EPA required water systems serving more than 10,000 people to test for 6 PFAS compounds for investigative purposes. This led to the detection of PFAS in drinking water systems throughout 33 U.S. states. At that time, there was no standard for PFAS in drinking water, and so investigative sampling was initiated simply due to the discovery of associated health problems with PFAS exposure. The city of Vancouver provides drinking water to approximately 270,000 people, making it the 3rd largest water provider in the state of Washington. So EPA then required, and still requires, these large public water systems to test for PFAS every 5 years. Therefore, testing occurred in 2018 and then again in 2023. In 2023, the state of Washington also developed its own state action levels for PFAS, and consequently, 4 City of Vancouver wells or water stations exceeded those state action levels. Next slide, please. So PFAS, full name is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or forever chemicals. They're widely used and have been across the globe since the 1940s. They're found in consumer products, from cleaning products, water-resistant fabrics, nonstick cookware, food packaging and containers, cosmetics, stain-resistant coatings, also in industrial products, from firefighting foam, electronics, to medical equipment. PFAS are simply and widely found in blood in people, in the blood of people and animals across the globe. Next slide, please. So we're still studying PFAS and to what extent their impact are to human health. But what we know today is that high exposure to certain PFAS compounds can lead to kidney and testicular cancer, liver damage, increased cholesterol, lower immune response to some vaccines, high blood pressure, and even decreased infant birth weight. And one more thing to say about this is PFAS standards are measured in parts per trillion, which is an exceptionally small measurement. So to paint a quick picture for you, the amount of PFAS in drinking water that it takes to exceed EPA's threshold is equivalent to 4 drops of water in the total volume of 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools. That's it. So, and these standards EPA established are based upon these current known health risks. Next slide, please. So what is public health doing about it? Well, as soon as we knew about PFAS in our local water systems, we began a campaign of community outreach and education. We built a web page with information about drinking water testing for private well owners and people connected to these public water systems, including frequently asked questions, linked to other resources, and a forum where people from the public can submit questions. We provide educational resources to address community questions about home water treatment, and we utilize our social media platform and news media to share PFAS information with the community. We also are currently working on a source water protection grant granted by the State Department of Health. It's a small grant where we're partnering with city and public utility water providers to collect more water quality data around PFAS to help protect these large public water sources. And we're also partnering with small public, community, and private well owners, residential well owners, to collect more water quality data to help protect those small wells even. Next slide, please. So back to this image, a little cleaned up. This image, we can focus on just these 4 City of Vancouver wells or water stations. These are water stations 4, 8, 14, and 15. And they were the first city wells in Clark County to exceed the Washington state action levels established in 2023. Therefore, I wrote a small grant proposal to the State Department of Health, which was awarded for the time period of January 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. These limited grant resources were acquired with the sole intention to be spent and pay for expensive PFAS water testing and any voluntary well decommissionings, which can also be extremely expensive, all to the sole benefit of our Clark County citizens. Next slide, please. We initially identified approximately 75 smaller wells from our in-house records amongst 56 well owners located within or near these zones of contribution or time of travel. These smaller wells might function as irrigation wells or private residential drinking water sources or small Group B community water systems. We then sent invitation letters to these well owners to offer them voluntary, no-cost participation in the project. And thus far, through data verification and well owner participation, those initial 75 wells settled down to 63 wells total. 28 of those 63 wells have been sampled and tested for the projects so far. But so that's about a 45% voluntary participation well for well. But if you consider the fact that a well owner can have more than one well on a property, that's above and beyond a 50% participation, voluntary. Next slide, please. So to just briefly rewind back to 2023, I had mentioned that the State Department of Health developed their state action levels for PFAS in large public water systems. In April 2024, EPA established maximum contaminant levels or standards with lower values than those state action levels established in 2023 by state of Washington. And those EPA levels are to be adopted nationwide by 2029. So large public water systems have until 2029 to implement water treatment measures to remove PFAS to below these EPA thresholds. And as we currently finish up these last couple months of this small grant project, we're also preparing a new grant application for the 2025 to 2027 biennium. And this next grant application will propose an expansion onto our current project work with the City of Vancouver into a countywide regional approach. Using the same successful methods, we intend to further assist all other city and public utility water stations in the county that are affected by PFAS and those residential and small community well owners immediately near them. We're going to continue to provide the community with new info about PFAS as it arises via our webpage, social media, and news media outlets, and continue to provide resources for community members with questions about well testing and home treatment options. And the last point I'll leave you with is that Clark County Public Health is a pioneer in this assessment work on PFAS in our well water. As far as I'm aware, we are the only agency in the state of Washington doing this particular type of work to help protect our well water. Next slide, please. So finally, here are some resources for more information for anyone who would like. Most questions could certainly be answered through these links and more. I suggest starting with our public health webpage listed at the top, and I want to thank you so much for your time and attention again.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. This is very informative. Are there any questions of the council? Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Matt. Thanks for being so thorough. I can tell you're very dedicated to trying to find solutions here. I have so many questions. I'm trying to figure out how to ask them. So we have 4 wells that have exceeded the state levels, but now there's going to be new standards from EPA from 24 that will be adopted by 29. Are we close to exceeding those levels in other wells? And then it sounds like we're in a data collection mode right now. And you had kind of hinted at mitigation measures. You had mentioned something about filtration. Just for the public, I'd just like to hear some of the solutions that people can do at home right now if they wanted to decrease the amount of PFAS in their water, and just what we can do as a county to mitigate where we think this is headed. And then the final question is, those 4 wells are city wells, and who has the authority to do treatment? Is it Clark County? Is it Vancouver City? Is it both of us? I just trying to get a grasp of all this. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for those great questions. And you might have to remind me with some of them. I'll try to answer all of those in one response. So those 4 water stations that I showed and we focused this grant project on were our City of Vancouver water stations. City of Vancouver has a total of 9 water stations, and 8 of those 9 have been found to have PFAS that do exceed the EPA maximum contaminant levels. So just to back up real quick, yeah, those EPA levels, thresholds are to be adopted by 2029. The state of Washington, being proactive, established their state action level in 2023, or anticipating thresholds coming out in April of 2024. So there are other cities and public utility wells who have detected PFAS above EPA thresholds. And I advise you to go to any of their websites that you might be concerned about, or contact them directly, their water departments, to get more specific information on their PFAS levels, their testing frequency, and or their plans for treatment, water treatment, or PFAS removal for the future. Let's see. As far as treatment, yeah, the cities that have PFAS have identified PFAS levels above those EPA thresholds are required to design and implement water treatment by 2029 to remove PFAS levels to below those EPA thresholds. As far as the in-home water treatment, whether you're on city or public utility water or on an individual well where you might be concerned, there are a lot of resources here online still being shown, listed here, about various types of filtration that will meet your individual home needs. And some of those I guess retailers in the county that sell water treatment systems can also guide and assist you based on your site specific considerations. There might have been another question that I didn't answer. Please refresh my memory.
Okay, just want to get a sense of if someone could buy something like a Brita type filter and filter these out at home, and then just trying to figure out here at the Clark County Council, what authority or purview do we have over the treatment solutions versus the city?
Well, the treatment requirements are a federal requirement on those large public water systems, and that will trickle down through the state. The State Department of Health has the oversight enforcement, to the best of my understanding, for those large Group A public water systems. And yes, some of those charcoal filtration devices, I can't speak to whether a Brita filtration device will fully remove PFAS. Probably depends on how high of concentration PFAS may be in the water you're trying to treat. I would suggest trying to get some more specific guidance through one of these resources or a local water treatment retailer.
I wanted to,
Thank you.
I just wanted to add quickly, thanks, Brian. You know, we do have, as he established in the presentation, we have on our webpage regarding PFAS, a direct link that people can submit direct questions to us. And so if we've gotten calls regarding home in treatment, we will guide them directly to where there are resources that provide very specific information about PFAS treating in home, whole home, and otherwise. So we are available to the public for that. And again, as Brian noted, most of the municipalities, and certainly the city of Vancouver, I don't want to speak for them, but we have been meeting with them and met with them recently. They very specifically plan to put in a treatment system for the water system for PFAS. I just don't remember the timeline.
If I can,
Thank you, Chuck.
if I can just add, you can reduce your exposure by their filters that attach to the faucet or go into the sink. And I believe there's information on our website about that, or at least connection to resources. You can find one that works.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I have a few questions. Thank you. So I'm trying to understand, you say 4 drops, 80 Olympic sized swimming pools. So I'm trying to understand what is, Vancouver, City of Vancouver has 8 out of 9 that are registering high levels. So what is the risk to us? So when you talk about that minuscule tiny amount, does that mean that you have to drink 500 gallons of water before you get one particle of PFA, or does it mean it's in every single glass that we drink? And, in terms of a public health perspective, how important is it for individuals' health that they get a filter in their house rather than drinking straight from the source?
Yeah, no, thank you for those great questions. I really appreciate it. They're very important. The analogy that I brought up, 4 drops of water in 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools. If you had pure concentrated 4 drops of PFAS and you dropped it in that total volume of water, 20 Olympic-sized pools all added together in one giant pool, it only take 4 drops of pure concentrated PFAS to exceed the EPA drinking water standard thresholds that they have established that pose a risk, potential risk to human health. So that's just an analogy of how sensitive and how small the detection measurement is for PFAS.
I was going to add, and this is a more general comment, to health-based standards that are developed by ATSDR, which is listed at the bottom. And so generally, and I can't say I've looked at this for PFAS specifically, but I've done work in environmental cleanup. And the standards are based typically on a 30-year lifetime consumption model or exposure. So exposure models can differ depending on the contaminant and the type of exposure, but I'm pretty certain that these numbers were based on the assumption of a long-term continued consumption of water based on the EPA standards for how much water a person drinks a day, et cetera. So that hopefully that helps explain why is the number so low and how did they base the number?
Maybe I put this in very simple terms. So the requirement is that all of the exposures be reduced by 2029. So the general population, if we continue to consume that water until 2029 when it's clean, what is the level of risk to people's health?
Is this on? Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna weigh in a little bit on this. So virtually all of us have been exposed to PFAS. These chemicals are ubiquitous. They've been used in a lot of consumer products that we've already listed, firefighting foam. So aside from what we're seeing in the drinking water tests here, virtually all of us have been exposed to PFAS, and we're still learning about this. If you go to the ATSDR site, you can read a little bit about the health effects, and there's information for clinicians. A lot of the studies are based on, and we're still learning, and Chuck is right, a lot of it is based on long-term exposure. A lot of the studies, animal studies, are based on much higher levels of concentration. than we're all exposed to, or exposed to relatively low levels compared to the animal studies. We're still working out the health effects. We do know that PFAS remains in the body. It's one of those things when you get exposed. That's why it's called a forever chemical. It remains in the environment as well as in the body. We all have an interest in reducing our exposure. It's probably not a good thing to be exposed to, especially in higher levels. So the idea is to, really work on reducing our exposure to this. In terms of the health effects, I think that if people are concerned, they need to talk to their clinician, their physician about this, and do a history in terms of exposure. But the vast majority of us have been exposed to some level of PFAS. I'm not sure that helps at all.
So
but-
as a public health official, would you recommend that people get a filtration device for their homes?
I would recommend that if people have PFAS in their water supply, that it wouldn't hurt to get a water filter, and that's why we have that information on our
Okay, and then thank you for that. And then my next question would be, is there any resources that would be available for individuals that may financially not be able to afford any filtration system?
I'll start it if I'll start to answer that question. There are some other grants that the state has, but it's not like a big pool of money to possibly do and provide funding. We haven't applied for one of it's an alternative drinking water program. We haven't applied yet, but we are looking at applying for that. But again, it would probably be very limited to help, and probably more focused on like a small community, smaller public water systems, what are called Group Bs, or smaller Group A systems potentially. But again, there is not right at this moment available funding to help pay for that.
I just want to add, I'm looking at my notes here. So the State Department of Health recommends that people who might be at the highest risk, pregnant, breastfeeding, or mixing infant formula with tap water, might want to use a filtration device. The other issue is you can use bottled water, but bottled water has lower standards than tap water has. So I'm not a huge fan of bottled water versus tap water, but that's another alternative people can use. But people who are most concerned, people pregnant, breastfeeding, making infant formula, those using a filter, if they have PFAS in their water, would be a good idea.
Great, thank you. And then just one last really quick question. 28 out of 63, I don't think I heard the results of those tests. Were those positive for PFAS or negative?
So yes, I anticipated this question, and as we're still finishing up the last couple of months of this grant project, we're still testing, and we'll also be fully looking through all the nuances of what the data shows. But 25 of those 28 wells that we've tested so far mirror the respective City of Vancouver well water results exceeding EPA thresholds.
And then that kind of brings about the narrative here is that there's no fix for those private wells. And I mean, the City of Vancouver is working on filtration systems for theirs, but if you're on a private well and you have those, there's no remedy other than a filtration system at your source. I think that's a
Can I say something? I want to say something else about filtration. So we know that these water filtration systems can be a little bit expensive. So the State Department of Health has created a handout with filter options and includes some more affordable options, such as filters that can be used in Brita water pitchers, which you asked about. And that handout is available on our website. One other thing I want to mention, that you can shower, wash your clothes in this water. It's not a source of exposure that way, but there is a more affordable option, and the information is on our website.
Great, thank you. Just I appreciate your work on this. This is a very complex issue that we're dealing with. And just I highly encourage keep looking at those grant funds for any way that we can help people that may not be able to afford a filtration system at their source.
Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, this is important information to get out to the public. It sounds like whether you're on a well or the municipal system, that you are being exposed to PFAS at a concerning level. And if you can and afford it, should take action to filter that. But I wanted to go quickly to a macro level. So it looks like from this new standard, who knows what future EPA standards will be, but based on the science, it looks like by 29, we have to take action on 8 of 9 wells in Vancouver. And I just wanted to get a sense of what the cost of one of those treatment systems would be. And since we do budget mostly from up here, I'd like to know the costs, and does the county have any responsibility for the costs of any of those 8 of the 9 wells that we're going to have to remediate?
No, I would recommend going to the city of Vancouver's webpage or contacting them directly on their water treatment design. And like I stated previously, the State Department of Health is the regulatory oversight of those large public water systems and not the county.
The Group B water systems, which are the 2 to 15 hookups.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a sense of what kind of economic impact it will be to the city. Just so I have my information, like, are we talking about multi-million-dollar filtration systems for each well?
I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I think Brian mentioned that we can certainly ask the city. Like we communicate with them all the time. We can ask them to provide those numbers, or if we can find them, we'll provide them to the council directly after today, if that's helpful. And I think on the data part, we could also provide a summary of the results if the council's interested.
Councillor Belcott, do you have any questions at this time? Okay, thank you. This is really a really important and useful role for the County Department of Health to support all of those water providers. So thank you for your work in this realm. I have a few questions. I wonder, that this just came to light the last few years, and these chemicals have been around since 1940. Is that we're able to measure things more precisely, that we're aware of this now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. And then I'm also wondering about source control. I serve on the Clean Water Alliance. So you're looking at things from the front end, they're looking at things from the back end, and concerns across the board. But what are the depths of the wells that we're talking about with the city of Vancouver? And are there previous industrial uses that is there any connection there? And really, has it gotten into the Troutdale Aquifer itself?
So depending on location, the city has wells at various depths. And yes, many of them are in the Troutdale. The smaller wells that we sampled and tested they're near there are generally a little on the shallower. However, some are in the same layer as the city wells. Wells are quite expensive to drill. But the city wells, I know that one of their approaches that I've heard that they're looking at for addressing PFAS is seeing if drilling some of their wells even deeper would help tap into water that is not affected by PFAS. But there's just so much that we just don't know yet.
Okay, and and to get into those water sources, it would have had to filter down through all those layers of earth.
Right. And so like similarly like a septic system as they spoke to before, septic systems are designed so that the soil can treat and filter biological contaminants and reduce nitrogen from wastewater. However, a septic system and the soil is not prepared to treat or filter these inorganic chemicals that man has made. And so, groundwater, all the rainwater, every drop of rainwater ends up below the surface, recharging our aquifers. And there are shallow aquifers, and there are more confined layers protecting the aquifers, although they're all directly or indirectly interconnected through fractures in bedrock and so on and so forth. But yeah, we haven't yet gotten to really chew on the nuances of all the data we've collected thus far, and we'll be doing that in the next couple of months.
Thank you. And go ahead.
I just wanted to add one other thing. I mean, I'll say generally, and I'm taking a little bit of a broad brush, the result, as Brian mentioned, the results so far haven't shown that there's any kind of like the higher concentration in any location that we've sampled so far that would indicate some type of major source of PFAS. And again, because of the big ubiquitous use of that chemical, it may be difficult. However, as we continue to monitor, if we do have those indications, we will certainly pursue and try to investigate or work with ecology to investigate any sources. And the last thing I'll say more generally is there is now, because of these questions and concerns, looking at certain things like biosolids management, septage management, to possibly look at, are those also sources, and do we need to manage them differently than we have historically? So it's a growing thing, and I think everyone's looking at where might there be sources, to talk to your question, and do we need to make changes to certain management of certain things that we know contain PFAS.
Chair Marshall, you said it really well earlier about these have been around for decades, nearly 100 years at least. That's why we call it the forever chemical. It does not break down in the environment. So it's not only created, but it's very stable. So the levels have been building up over many years of use.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Those were really good questions. There are so many things to cover here. The last thing that you just pointed out was the sewage treatment. So every time you wash a nonstick pan that might still have it, or wash fire protective clothing or bedding, it goes into the system. And then at the end of that system, what are some of the potential solutions that you might look at in the future of installing to filter the end of the sewage treatment stages?
I would ask you, what do you do with the filter where those come? I mean, the solution is to not be creating these products that have these chemicals in them, because you're still stuck with the filter it's still around.
Sure. I'm just thinking about what we can actually do about it from our end as sewage treatment
Well,
managers.
I would say you really need to get to the sources, and I think there's legislation as far as product manufacturing, get these chemicals out of the system. I think they're still being used widely, and you could filter your water, but if you're scraping your Teflon frying pan a little too much, you're eating it directly. So there's a whole slew of, I think, regulatory things that could be put in place to really get upstream to control these products. And if we had better control over all those chemists out there that are cooking up these chemicals, that would be good as well.
Yeah,
Other- Go ahead.
that's a great point. They are, widely used and have been. They're in the car waxes that repel rainwater on our cars. They're in the Scotch guarding, they're in so many products, that we universally use day in and day out. And so we haven't yet found a smoking gun. There's no Aaron Brockovich story of one big bad manufacturer that has contaminated our groundwater. We don't have anything like that. It seems thus far that it's just a widely pervasive chemical that we're just finding out after the fact, just like lead, just like asbestos and everything else. So
I just want to follow up on my question. So this is, of course, upstream is incredibly important. I've worked on non-point sewage pollution my whole life, and we don't have the power to change all the inputs. We could educate and advocate for it, but then again, on the end of the sewage treatment stages, what are some things that we could implement now or in the future that would actually filter out those things that are going into the system?
So I would say that and this is like a lot of other systems that treat contaminants, lots of times the only method is just to dispose of it in a landfill that's lined and protected from further release of if it's an old cartridge, it's a treatment cartridge, et cetera. So that's part of the solution and certainly at this, for example, at the city level, if they're filtering it out, they're not gonna be able to just wash the filters out anywhere. They're gonna probably have to take that solid waste and put it in a landfill that's protected. And there was one other aspect and the only thing I just wanted to add relative to like home use, again, I think the marketplace, if you've looked, there are, people can find non-PFAS things that don't contain them if they're concerned about it and want to reduce that.
Okay, so currently the municipal sewage treatment system is not filtering out PFAs. It doesn't have equipment for it.
Not yet.
Is there such a system that exists, and what are
Yes.
the costs of doing that?
I did. The city has worked on it. I think I've seen a cost estimate. I just can't remember. It's in the several millions of dollars. They are working towards. I think they've identified the funding, and they are going to be adding treatment to the city of Vancouver. I think Camas and Washougal have lower levels, but my last conversation with them, they're also looking at treatment solutions. I don't have the numbers on top at the tip of my tongue, but we can look into that and provide that information.
And when you're talking about treatment, are you talking about they're planning to treat the water
They're
or
going to
the
treat
sewage?
the water. They're going to treat the water.
I'm asking about the sewage treatment.
So I mentioned like I said, I don't know exactly what they're going to do. Like there is a biosolids program where remove solids that are full of nutrients and things like that, and other things obviously there is a program to review them and then land apply them. But I think there's a lot of work being done right now to look at that practice, particularly related to PFAS, that potentially those types of solids that contain those types of chemicals will not be land applied, but I don't know exactly where we are on that at the state or local level yet.
I would suggest maybe we want to invite John Peterson to come here and talk about what they're doing at the wastewater treatment plants, because it's a major topic and they're wrestling with it.
Can I make just one other thing? On our website, we have a list of PFAS-free consumer products. So if people don't want to purchase products that have PFAS, there's information on our website. I have no idea about the economics of removing PFAS from sewage. The only thing about sewage, though, is it goes into the river, which goes out to the ocean, not into the groundwater. But although there is some communication with the groundwater.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, did you want to add something, Brian?
I was just gonna piggyback on everything that's been said, and that probably the largest component of sewage or wastewater is the water that comes out of the faucet. So the first thing that we can address that we know of thus far is we've detected PFAS as our source water. And so by just reducing the level of PFAS in our source water, that will also subsequently reduce to some degree the concentration of PFAS as ends up in our wastewater. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you. Okay, I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this in the future. I really appreciate the role that we're playing in supporting the municipalities and water providers. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to comments from the public. I think someone's coming forward.
Quinn Gersich?
Push the button.
First of all, I want to give Glenn Young this book, and I want him to read it to know where the PFAS came from. And please, if you can hand it over to him. This thing that I have right here is reducing PFAS in drinking water with treatment technology. And it was from August 23rd, 2018. And it says that active carbon treatment is one of the best. That's what's been studied the most. But this thing called GAC is effective in moving PFAS from drinking water when used with a flow-through filter. Anyway, I want to give you this. This kind of tells you what to do. This is about treated sewage water is still contaminated. Now, how we can get some of this PFAS out of our water before it goes down the drain is that we need to have, see, this was a collection thing. I got this started. This was about medical drop-offs. In Utah, they did this, and I went to a funeral and I brought this back and gave it to the San Francisco PUC. We could do a drop-off for these pots and pans that are Teflon, or have the garbage people pick them up. And they need to get them off the shelves. And this is what I was talking to John Lee about, having a consumer affair board of volunteers, because that's what my friend Marlene Hurd does in Oakland, California. And they get stuff off the shelves and things that are poisonous. But the thing that if these pots, every time you wash them and it goes down the drain and you're trying to get it out at the wastewater treatment plant, the fact is you keep putting them down the drain every time somebody washes a pot. You know, you're, it's like someone chasing this thing and you're wasting a lot of time doing nothing. If we don't get this stuff off the shelf and not use it, and it should be removed from everybody's houses. And you can have a drop-off for pots and pans, just like this medical drop-off. There's lots of things that you can do about it, but this book here is really fascinating. This is Sustainability, Chapter 17. And what it says is that in San Francisco, when they added the chloramine to the recycled toilet water, they also passed a law under the UN to only take 3 toxic things off the shelves a year. So last year they took out, and they should have done this a long time ago, Black people's hair straighteners. The sodium hydroxide that they put in there is poisonous. So they've taken that off the shelves. So the thing that's amazing is that we should be taking these pots and pans off the shelf now and not waiting, because it's absolutely ridiculous not to do that. And the other thing too, I'm going to put all this stuff about toilet water because I know a lot about it. And also the other thing that we need to get off the shelves is Bill Gates. He has that fake meat with the tumor in it. Get that off.
Okay,
that
thank
shouldn't be
you.
sold
Yeah.
in this county.
Thanks.
Carmen De Leon?
Yeah, it's me again. So, yeah, I forgot to mention and a few minutes ago about the pill that they give the women a birth control pill, and they say just wait for it to flush it down the toilet. And I don't know if they have that prepared for abortions down the toilet, but it is definitely happening. They highly recommend it, which I think is sick because we need our population, and to take a pill and flush it down the toilet seems contradictory to human evolution. Anyways, that's what I had forgotten to say. And are we guinea pigs for the past 40 years? Really? That they've been putting this crap in, you know, you wouldn't have to take it out if you didn't put it in, like come back to where she said, we need to inform the public that certain things are bad for the environment, and that is what you're cooking with. The best thing is stainless steel, I believe. Anyways, how much time do I have? We're coming back at 2, right? Let me see, what else did I have here? Oh yeah, I went to the Chehalis thing, or they went to go look at the clear cut, and I came here to find out about it, and he told me to be there at 10, and I was there at 10:01, and everybody had already left. So thanks City Council for being there and not waiting 1 minute past 10 for the public to show up, because I drove all the way out there. And I waited outside and waited. I said, okay, they said 10 o'clock meeting time. And I finally went inside and he said, yeah, the whole group was here. They left about 5 minutes ago. I said, wow, isn't it common courtesy to wait at least 5 minutes or 10 minutes for people to show up when you know that it's raining and twisty roads and you've never been there before? And yet everybody left because I guess it's not that important to wait for the whole group. Only they showed up. Only they went. I wasn't able to go see the clear cut that, you know, I'm opposed to. And I noticed that this Trump administration is pushing it. And here we are, you know, I mean, we have to agree to disagree because it's obviously not helping the environment. It's only helping a few people's pocketbooks. And like I've said before, that if you are going to clear cut, you might as well replace it with bamboo that grows 3 times as fast. And you want to talk about toilets? It degrades faster in the system if you have better biodegradable toilet paper that they won't have to process as much. And it grows faster. So you don't have to take a clear cut oak, beautiful tree. You can just use a piece of bamboo for your butt, you know? I mean, if you want to help the environment, you know, you have the clear cut, they want to grow things, let them grow bamboo, let them grow hemp.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else?
We don't have anybody else signed up. I do have one caller online.
Okay.
Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute. Please go ahead and unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and go ahead with your comment.
Kimberly Goheen Elbin. You know, I met Wynn Gersich 4 years ago, and I consider her knowledge on water and pollution and stuff a blessing. You guys need to pay attention to this. The fact is you guys have known all about this. For some reason, you're not being transparent to the people. It might be because of mass hysteria. Are you afraid of mass hysteria? So it's that nightmare that I've spoken about that people are waking up to. People have no clue that the water is polluted, and it's not going to get better. But yet Vancouver wants to be the second largest city, bringing in population, overpopulation, pollution, and therefore, you know, I've mentioned it before and so have others. Our water resources are depleting. Stop the growth. You say, well, we have to put people somewhere. Well, not here. People need to protect our county, each county, but we can only speak for ourselves. So just localize here in our grassroots. Take care of what is your first priority, public safety, right? Even though it's actually last. And protect our water. We cannot have any more population here. We just can't. And Medicine Man Milnick really, it really upsets me when he's known all about this. And I think that the health department here
Kimberly, please, no personal attacks.
Okay, do not take my time to tell me what to say. This is an open public comment. And if I have something to say that is about what I believe wrong about something, it's not him, it's his position, okay? The position needs to be just ousted. So he mentions the contaminated water that women are putting into their baby formula. Well, he didn't tell the people that baby formula is crap. It has no nutrition to it practically, other than, you know, corn thickener and all that other stuff. So there's really, I mean, this is horrible. And he knows this. And then he finally comes up with the idea, well, because a council member said, should we put water filters on? Yeah, I guess so. That would be good. Well, what kind of health department official is that? And he knows it. He knows all of that. So as far as nutrition goes, our jail system is a mess. It is headed by unelected Kathleen Otto, the county manager. I won't mention names, but I'll tell you this. There is no nutritional value in that food. They have to drink poison water, and
Okay,
I'm
thank you. Your
absolutely
time's up.
upset about all that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Thank you. Okay, are there any comments from the board? Go
Sure.
ahead.
Just one question really quick, and I think I know the answer to this, but do we have the ability in any capacity to regulate what might be sold in Clark County?
I'm not aware of that. I think, yeah.
Can't buy fireworks. They can regulate.
This is Chris Cook for the record, Chief Civil Deputy Prosecuting Attorney. And I would think that that would be a difficult proposition to defend unless there is some piece of state law that explicitly addresses it. And if there is, I don't know about it.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? If not, and without objection, I'll adjourn the Board of Health meeting. Thank you.